Thanks. Now, I am Dustin Baker. This will be the last transmission, the last correspondence we have from the show until Tuesday morning when we talk about the aftermath of Vikings 49ers. So I've got Coda and I've got Tyler Ireland on. They're both veterans of this show, and we're here to chat about Vikings 49ers. Coda, how are you?
I'm doing okay. Like I said, just got back from stargazing the Mojave Desert. Who wouldn't love that? So I'm doing
Yeah,
okay.
a little flex there, rubbing that in. We'll take it. Tyler, you were here last week. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to watch this new Saw movie that's coming out. I've heard it's really good, so really looking forward to that.
You're gonna have to let us know in detail next Friday what you think of it. We'll do a little precursor segment for horror fans, especially with Halloween afoot. But this is not horror now. This is VikesNow. So I want to chat about Monday Night Football, the Vikings' first home Monday Night Football game since 2019, if you can believe that. The schedule makers love tossing the Vikings on the road on Monday nights. We'll take this home contest. Tyler, I'm going to start with you. There are a lot of things to fear about the 49ers, especially a 5-1 record, an angry team that just lost because of a missed, somewhat chip shot field goal. But I want to know, on the whole, what scares you most about the San Francisco 49ers?
This may surprise you guys, but the one thing that scares me the most about the Niners is Brock Purdy himself.
Oh, okay.
Because I don't think he gets enough credit for how he's able to handle pressure. Like, he's just super calm in the pocket, and he's able to get the ball out quickly a lot of the time. I know against the Giants in week 3, I think it's Wink Martindale who's still over in New York as the defensive coordinator, but they blitzed him a ton. Like, they blitzed him 84.6% of the time, which was the most in the next gen stats era that they were able to record. And Purdy that week went 20 for 31, passed for 247 yards and 2 touchdowns when they blitzed. So the idea that we're just going to, Purdy's a system quarterback and we're going to, throw some pressure at him and shut down their offense is far-fetched to me. I don't think he gets enough credit for just how he's able to overcome some of that adversity. So that's the one thing I look at, and I'm like, well, if the blitz isn't gonna affect him, then what is? So, and of course they have all those weapons too. That makes it very easy for him to succeed. But Purdy himself is a big reason for that, and I believe he's better than some of these quarterbacks like Derek Carr. I mean, he's better than Jimmy G was during his time at San Francisco. Heck, you could even argue that he might be better than Kirk right now. Not from the statistical standpoint, because Kirk's throwing for a lot of yards, but when you watch the games and how these two quarterbacks are able to sort of handle the game and compose themselves, Purdy just makes it look so easy. So that's the one thing I'm afraid of.
Per DVOA and EPA per play, Purdy has outperformed Kirk. And it's just wild that they were able to stumble into Mr. Irrelevant, quite literally, make it work when they couldn't figure out Trey Lance after they traded the farm. So it sounds like you're still, even if the injury report shows up, Sunday or Monday and says that McCaffrey won't play or Samuel won't play, it sounds like you're still anxious, even so, because if Purdy's a special sauce, or at least what scares you the most, then they might still be able to win without their ginormous playmakers. Is that correct?
Pretty much. I mean, I think coming out of high school, he was the number 1 rated pro style quarterback. And then there was some ups and downs in college to where he fell to the 7th round, but he's always been a special talent in terms of just his pro readiness and prepares. So it's going to be a challenge for sure.
All right, Coda, I'm going to ask you the same question. Tyler talked about Wink Martindale, Blitzen. That's about the most similar you'll find defensively scheme to Brian Flores would be Martindale, or I guess Belichick could be argued too, because that's where Flores was reared. But what scares you, my lady, the most about the 49ers?
I will definitely have to echo what Tyler was saying. I mean, take into the consideration that statistically, he and Kirk Cousins are very neck and neck. Not so much obviously with the quarterback rating, but when it comes into consideration with yardage, touchdowns, etc., But on top of everything, again, echoing what Tyler said, you have to take into consideration the fact, like, he was Mr. Irrelevant. He was the last draft pick. I feel like as talented as he is, a lot of it also comes down to he's got a point to prove. He's got all of these people that he's got to prove wrong, which I think really is what drives him to play as well as he does. But in regards to that, aside from that, I also think that their defense in regards to the rush game, the running game, is what scares me the most. We've already had so many issues on the run game. Throw in a defense that's only let up 80 yards to running backs any running game at all. That scares me. I mean, we've got, as much as I love Alexander Mattinson, everybody knows how much I love him. He's not able to hold on to the ball. We've barely let Cam Akers get any reps in during the game. So throw in the fact that we don't got JJ. I think their run defense leaves a lot for us to be scrambling against. And as I don't know, we haven't been doing well situationally in games. So I'm a little nervous that their defense, specifically that D line, it's gonna get into our heads. It's gonna get into Kirk's head, and we're gonna see that good old primetime Kirk Cousins.
What keeps happening to me this week, and I think you have to, I think every sports fan does this, no matter what team you're cheering for, you talk yourself into, all right, here's how they could win. And every time I do that and I get to the cusp, I forget the Jefferson's out. I'm like, but God, they don't have Jefferson. And then I'm back to square one. So I'm right there on the defense. That's what spooks me the most. Because next to the Eagles, or right on par with the Eagles, I think it's the best defense per talent in the sport. I think the Browns are more cohesive at the moment. Well, I know they are. The Browns quietly have one of the best trending defenses like of the decade, if you follow some of the advanced metrics. But I digress. So the defense scares me, the front four. And then even if Dre Greenlaw doesn't play in the middle of the field, still Fred Warner back there, and that's problematic. All right, let's talk a little bit about some of if we can talk ourselves into this thing. Tyler, if the Vikings beat the 49ers, how will they do it, or how will they have done it in retrospect? What will be the kicker?
Well, to what Dakota was saying, Alexander Madison and Cam Akers would have to step up big time for us to even have a shot, because I think the Niners defense, specifically the pass defense, is way too talented for Kirk to just dice them up without any semblance of a run game. You need to get that play action pass going, and you can't do that if Madison and Akers are struggling to get consistent yardage. Weirdly enough, the one thing the Niners have struggled with is the run defense. Yes, they have a ton of talent in the interior defensive line, but when you rank them as a unit, they're allowing 4.4 yards per carry, which is 26th among NFL defenses. Then they have a 7.8% very positive run rate, which is 22nd. And then 38.8% of the runs pick up a first down, which is 25th. So if you can get the run game going and really assert that early on, it's going to open up a lot of things for Kirk to really dissect the Niners defense through play action passes. But even that's going to be difficult. Like, even with the run game, Kirk can't just revert to check down Charlie and, throw to CJ Ham in the flat. He's going to have to take those chances, and it's going to be tough without Jefferson, because he's your number one deep threat in this offense. So who are you going to? Like, I understand he has a lot of chemistry with KJ Osborne. We saw a lot of that last week, but I wouldn't classify him as a deep threat. Hawkinson has been struggling with, the drops, and that's someone you throw to more over the middle because he's just, he's big and he's quick for his size. Addison, as great as he is, and he's been getting, touchdowns on a weekly basis, he just struggles against press. I don't know how often you can really go to Addison without having him to motion him, or, just having to motion him across the line of scrimmage to get him a free release. So really, someone in that wide receiver room is going to have to step up. And I wonder if it's Jalen Naylor, if he's healthy for this game, because he was a bit of a deep threat at Michigan State. His nickname was Speedy, if I recall correctly.
Yep.
So maybe you can unleash some of that. I don't know how involved Brandon Powell will be. I don't really see him as a deep threat. but it's going to have to be a collective effort among these wide receivers to, give Kirk something to work with without Jefferson out in the field.
One of the weirdest things among many for these 2-4 Vikings is, if you believe in Pro Football Focus, they have the run blocking offensive line to do the thing. They rank tops in the business in that. And then they don't run it. They rank 32nd per rush play call percentage. And then when they do, it usually doesn't feel like they have the top run blocking line because it's not that fruitful. So, this lends credence to let's see some more Cam Akers. Let's see an equitable split carry load between Madison and Akers. But indeed, I've been kind of thinking, and I know I've been tweeting it, that if they want to run the ball, they've got a perfect setup to do it with the offensive line. And usually if you are struggling running the football, you're like, well, the offensive line sucks. That's why they're not doing it. That's not the case here. So I agree with Tyler on getting either Madison, alas, cooking, or, swinging 50% of the carry load to Akers. Dakota, if the Vikings defeat the 49ers to go to 3-4, how are they going to do it?
Yeah, again, I really just want to echo everything that Tyler was saying. I think on top of that, too, I can't remember if it was you who posted the stat or somebody else, but somebody had posted the stat that even when you do blitz Brock Purdy, as great as he is, oftentimes he does a little bit underperform depending on the type of blitz and how you pressure at his O-line. So I think a lot of it is really going to come down to how Brian Flores is going to play, hitman. We saw a lot of Harrison Smith come out and be really surprising a couple games ago. And I think a lot of it is going to depend on him. I think a lot of it's going to depend on Josh Metellus and really how you play sort of your safeties and your inner D line. I also think on top of that, it's going to also have to be a lot on TJ Hawkinson's shoulders. I think personally, like we've been saying, they've got some insane playmakers on their defense. And if TJ Hawkinson can actually, hold the ball and not have butter or whatever the heck he's been having on his gloves lately, I think that he can, use his durability to at least get us driving down the field, at least establish up front that maybe he's the man that Kirk's going to go to, start shifting some of the coverage over his way. You leave it open for Addison, like Tyler was saying, maybe send him into motion to get everything shifting. I think a lot of it really, and saying all this, is gonna come down to situational football. We have not really been adjusting so far this season. I don't know what Kevin O'Connell is doing, but if we can't adjust, if we can't see what they're doing, see how we can answer that with our guys, I don't know. I don't think it's going to be pretty.
On the Flores defense, another thing that gives me a little anxiety is the defense really started to turn around or mature on the fly in the Panthers game. And coincidentally, that's when Marcus Davenport was back. And now Marcus Davenport is gone. And we're saying all these rosy things about TJ Wanham's going to step up. Well, hopefully he does. He didn't in the first 2 or 3 games, but then he did against the Panthers. So I'm a little paranoid that the defensive shift or the enhancement that we've seen against the bad Panthers, the good Chiefs, and the bad Bears had something to do with Marcus Davenport winning his matchup. And then, of course, now he's out for at least 4 games. And knowing him, it'll probably be 6 or 7, after Thanksgiving. If they beat the 49ers, my recipe is pretty simple. They have to score a touchdown on the first drive. They haven't done that all year. We had a little parade when they scored a field goal against the Bears on the first drive, and then they can't turn the ball over. It's just like the Chiefs game, and I didn't talk to either one of you leading up to that game, but I said if they turn the ball over even once or they don't force one in return, the margin for error is too slim against the world champions, and I say the same thing against the 49ers. If they do some bullshit like fumble the first play or the second play, I'm like, no, that was fun, not going to work. And you can just etch that in stone unless they force a turnover of their own. That was the difference between this year and last year, is the Vikings weren't absolutely tremendous at protecting the ball last year. They were middle of the pack, but then they also forced turnovers, which somehow the Donatel defense did that. All right, final question for the panel. Ultimately, Tyler, do you believe this purple and gold team gets smoked by the 49ers, or will it be competitive?
I think we're getting smoked, Dustin. I mean, the way I see this is you're basically relying on your one weakness to be your strength, which is our running game. I don't think Madison has the vision or the burst to really challenge this Niners defense, even if our offensive line does surprisingly well against a tough defensive front, which is a question in its own right. But you're asking a lot of Alexander Madison and Cam Akers against a tough defense. And then if that fails, then you're asking Kirk to carry the team without his best receiver. And that just might be too tall of a task to ask on a Monday night for Kirk. So I just don't see this game going very well at all, because you're not going to be able to run the football. We didn't run very well last week, and that was against Chicago. So you're going against the Niners on Monday Night Football now. I don't see how we're going to be able to run efficiently, because it's something we've struggled with all season long. And even with the whole 4 yards per carry allowed by the Niners and all those stats, at the end of the day, they still have a talented defensive line, and that's going to trump any sort of advanced statistics that you can throw out there and say, well, actually, maybe they're not as good as we thought. Because ultimately, the talent on the Niners defensive line exceeds the talent in our running back room. And I think it's just going to come down to that.
And you think, so smoked, are you thinking 49ers by 2 touchdowns or so?
Yeah, at least.
Yuck.
We're going to end up abandoning the run game super early, and I could see a couple of picks thrown by Kirk because of that.
All right, that is not positivity, Coda, but it's realistic and pragmatic, so I respect it. What do you have, Coda? Will the Vikings get smoked by these 49ers or not?
Well, I feel like I've got this like huge reputation on both your show and on Twitter being like the positive force on the Minnesota Vikings like community. I think it'll be very similar to the Eagles game. You know, you have a couple of mistakes that ultimately take you away from any ability to win. I don't think it'll be as hopeful as the Eagles game. I think maybe 1 touchdown and a field goal is what we'll lose by. I think if we do win, it will come down to Greg Joseph kicking like a 42-yard field goal or something, you know.
We'll take it.
Right. I think, you know, it's always really funny because I'm in a pick'em league with my family, and I'm one of the last people to pick because I like knowing who's in the game and who's not. And so I think for me, it's hard to really answer this question if not knowing where Christian McCaffrey or
I agree.
And I think, you know, again, being the positive force, the hopeful individual here, Christian McCaffrey sits, Deebo Samuel sit. I think it's doable, but very, very hard to do. I think it really, really comes down to, once again, can Kevin O'Connell adjust? Can he keep the defense on their toes? Can he do another fake a punt, freak out the fans and the team that we're playing against? But like I said, if we do lose, it's going to come down to a touchdown and a field goal. If we win, it'll come down to a last-second field goal by Greg Joseph. The
cool thing about that fake punt against the Chiefs, which I think you're talking about, is we all knew it was coming and they knew it was coming, but they still executed it well enough to convert it. I'm right there with the both of you. It would be nice to make this prediction if we knew for certain the statuses of Trent Williams and Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey. I'm going to guess that 2 out of the 3 of them play. I do not think the Vikings will get smoked, and my source or my evidence is they didn't get smoked against the Chiefs, and I don't think the 49ers are leaps and bounds better than the Chiefs, and I know that their quarterback isn't as good as the Chiefs quarterback. So ultimately, I will, while I'm driving up there, talk myself into the Vikings can win, but realistically, I think the 49ers will win 24-17. I'm not sure what will be the cause of only 17 points. But it feels like the opponent is just too superior per sheer roster talent. Even if they don't have McCaffrey, the defense is too daunting. All right, Tyler, where can we find your writings? Where can we find your Twitter, good sir?
Yeah, so you can find my writing on Purple PTSD, Daily Norseman, and the Viking Age. And my Twitter handle is at Tyler Ireland NFL. So that's Ireland like the country.
Excellent. I am Irish myself, so I appreciate the last name. Coda, let's see. TikTok, Twitter, where else can we find you?
Yeah, man, the Gardeners are just now starting. Of course they are.
Perfect timing.
I know, right? So sorry if you can't hear me, but I can be found on TikTok at Western Dakota, and I can be. No! There we go. Okay. I can be found on TikTok at Western Dakota, and I can be found on Twitter at Kirk's Minivan and Western Dakota as well. So.
Perfect. All right. Next Friday, I'll talk to either both of yous or one of yous, whoever's available, and we'll be in Packer Week, and we'll only be a couple days from that. So thank you guys for joining, and we'll talk to you in 7 days. All right.
All right.
All right. Later.
Later.